Welcome back to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. My name is Scott, and we are here for the instant reaction review to Monday Night Raw from Brussels, Belgium. And it was a really good show, really fun show. A shorter show than expected, but a fun one nevertheless. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to bring in Lucas, and we're going to hear his thoughts on the show. This time wasn't out there live like he was for SmackDown Barcelona, but either way, great to have him on the channel and appearing tonight. Here he is once again. Lucas, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Good. What do you think of the show overall?
Yeah, it was all right. Like, I don't know, just felt a bit by the numbers.
I didn't feel like it was as good as Barcelona was.
No,
I'm sure you'll definitely not feel like that, having been there in person as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, people can say it's biased because I was there, but I don't know. This week just really felt a bit. Because I think, when obviously I was last on the stream with you guys, about an hour ago, we kind of said, oh, the only thing that's announced is the main event, and they were doing a replay of obviously what happened in the main event of last week's Raw, and then they shoehorned in a tag match, didn't they, between American Made and LWO. And also, as well, at that point, I left you, was just before the JOC match, which ended up basically being a squash.
Very quick. I thought it was so quick. I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if Lucas just jumps back on to go. That was quick. That was quick. It was surprising. Well, actually, you know what we'll do? It was mainly me and the watch along. So for a moment, I'm going to throw it over to just you to give your thoughts and basically give a little bit of a rundown of the show overall, and then I'm going to hop back in a moment. So Lucas, take.
Yeah, so guys, we begun Raw obviously with the John Cena in-ring promo, which my take on it, I still don't know how to think. I think he's going down the wrong route for the promo. Though I do think it was cool when he came out and seeing the crowd, hearing the crowd, and I can only imagine people there like feeling that crowd would have been impressive. I think that there were parts in that where you have to imagine he's built this up for years. Some of the stuff he wanted to say to the fans, and obviously hasn't been able to. But then, and then obviously he addressed not changing the theme song, not changing his look, but he didn't address the stuff from the chamber, which was the more important things. Like what has The Rock said to him? What's the deal, going forward? Obviously, there's other dates in his contract, and it feels like very much we're not going to see him in ring now until Mania. There's lots of questions, basically, that have come from this. We then had the first match of the evening, which was Penta against Ludwig Kaiser. Ludwig Kaiser, for people who, obviously, Americans, he's been doing a great job in using these ad breaks to do his promos throughout the crowds and really kind of getting the heat needed. It was a really good match. I've always found that technical wrestlers such as Ludwig really adapt well to hardcore matches because I guess they know how to set things up from a technical perspective. I think overall that, it was the right decision. And obviously Penta afterwards saying he'd go after the IC title, which we'll get to in due course. We then very quickly after that had Dakota Kai facing and defeating Ivy Nile of American Made. It was not a good night to be American Made tonight. I might as well link them together because obviously the shoehorn tag we got in was American Made against the LWO. It just felt very, I don't know, just very rushed, and obviously, having people obviously in multiple segments and setting up a match, and then it just felt a bit off to me. I don't know. It just felt a bit like maybe they didn't book enough wrestlers and then finally realised it, or didn't book like enough story. So I was talking about American Made, and then
squeezing them in, sort of thing. Yeah,
it just that part. I don't know. It almost felt like it needed like another big match or moment, I guess.
I felt like the show, it was fun, but it felt more like a house show than SmackDown did. SmackDown felt a lot more like canon and part of the show. Look, there was storyline progression here as well, but a lot of it was kind of getting us to next week in some ways, and everything that did have progression was lower or mid card, it felt.
Yeah, and just in a nice possible way, people who aren't really going to impact the WrestleMania card, like American Made.
Yeah.
I can't really see anything they're doing kind of computing to get anything on the WrestleMania card. Where SmackDown, I felt, like you had LA Knight start the night. You saw the Bloodline. You saw them set up obviously stuff with Jacob Fatu and Braun Strowman. We obviously did see Cody, obviously basically hype up tonight, which obviously tonight's happened now. And we did see Paul Heyman hype up next week, and obviously after Friday next week would have happened. So I guess there's that. But we did also see the tag titles on the line, and we saw. Obviously, LA Knight, who's the United States champion, he was there. And we saw Gunther, the World Heavyweight champion, in action in a very fantastic match against a local. So it just felt like there was like a lot more kind of going on, on SmackDown. Charlotte Flair made a return to the ring for the first time since the Rumble as well. I don't know. I guess with these tours, it seems like it's difficult because I guess they're fighting that. We need to announce people to sell tickets, but we also need to keep some surprises for the TV, and so that people don't know what's kind of going on. Then it has just led to this awkwardness of, Heyman having to show up on SmackDown in Barcelona just to basically announce that Roman Reigns will be there next week, so they have a week of selling tickets based off Roman Reigns being there. And now on Raw, Rollins has gone, oh yeah, I'm also going to be there. And then it's just a bit like. Setting that.
What about tonight, guys?
yeah. I mean, Rollins kind of addressed it. I mean, there was that, like I said to you, like I said after SmackDown, there was boos every time anything basically for next week on the next show was happening, and it felt a bit like that tonight at times, like when Rollins was doing his stuff, and there wasn't much of a reaction to him saying, I think he expected. This is where I guess going forward they have to think about it when they do these international shows, because obviously, whereas when they're sticking to America, it sometimes it is a big distance, but sometimes with Americans they're happy to fly here, there, and everywhere. They fly and they drive, like crazy distances for sometimes just for work, isn't it? Like let alone recreation like this. But in kind of Europe, people won't go to like another country usually unless it's for something. We don't just kind of like go, oh yeah, we're gonna. Well, I did on Friday, I guess, but most people don't just hop over to Italy, for like a day and just to watch Raw or SmackDown. Like people just wait for it to come in their area. Even in the same country, you'd argue, like if they were to do like they're doing Paris now, well this year, aren't they, for Clash in Paris with Lyon last year? I can guarantee you some fans that came Lyon won't go to Paris because it's just it's a different area. But no, I thought overall it was I guess they put all their eggs into one basket with having Cena and Cody Rhodes on for the first time, but it is a case of next week they're doing the same thing. But how are they gonna make that different? Because they have announced for next week that Cody Rhodes and John Cena will be in the same building again. Okay, but how do
twice in a lifetime, like Rock and Cena all over again. But yeah, it was an interesting way to start the show. I mean, Casper's commented here saying I did expect a little more from John Cena. I expected new music, bald Cena, a Nick Aldis blue suit, that kind of look, and didn't get any of that. But you don't deserve it, he quoted. So that was the approach they took. Again, we mentioned it on the watch along, and again, for those joining us now, thank you so much for tuning in, whether you're live or on demand. You can go back and watch our kind of reactions at the time. But essentially, John Cena came out and he did the kind of typical heel promo of like, you don't deserve me and you have always been bad to me, and I got where he was coming from. It was the the kind of anti-Cena chants and stuff like that. So I thought that was clever to play into that. But then I think they've gone kind of almost too far the other way of like, I won't give you what you want. Because I think because he had come out recently in a Chris Van Vliet interview about a year or so ago now, saying, look, I was going to turn heel. It's going to be new music. It was going to be get rid of the jorts. I was going to be a different kind of character. It would have been completely different to what you know from John Cena. I think everybody expected that this time round. And because that's out in the kind of open now, I feel like he's decided to go the other way and be like, no, I'm still John Cena, but you are the problem. And that's what you get a lot of times when people turn heel. But because it's such a monumental heel turn, it felt like, no, it wouldn't be. It'd be a complete change of his character. Now, don't get me wrong. There were still things about tonight's presentation that were different to what we're, used to seeing from John Cena. But for the most part, the story he's told was, you guys have bullied me into being this, and it's all take. And, what can I get out of it? Which, again, is an age-old story that heels will tell. But it wasn't what I expect. And while I do respect them trying something different, I have to be honest, I did feel a little disappointed that it wasn't what I wanted it to be. But I think, again, that's on purpose. It's to make us, even the people that wanted to like him as a cool heel, go, no, I'm a heel to you. Like, he's actually annoyed people tonight by not doing those things. I mean, what were your thoughts on the way it was presented and the kind of, I guess, promo that John Cena gave?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's one of those things that we have to unpack quite a lot of. But I think Michael Cole's reaction actually to it actually helped me a lot better than actually the segment. I think Michael Cole kind of painting this picture that obviously John Cena for 20 years, he's had everyone kind of on his side, and then Corey Graves even slipping in. Oh, we're getting like the real John Cena now, and it's that kind of that realization to someone like a Michael Cole and how angry he got about it. Actually,
yeah, it's great.
Made it, made it go. Oh, this is the thing. I think they're towing that line between, okay, lots of things on this thing are predetermined, but like this is real, like this is legit. I think that's where they're kind of going with it. I feel that I don't know whether they're going to do something. I think next week's segment will determine it more than this week's in a weird way. I think next week's segment, they have the chance to obviously get the feedback from tonight. Yeah. But they also have the chance to kind of go, okay, this is the proper direction we want to go in. I think that, Cena was it felt like he was kind of covering a lot of, in a weird way, I kind of think he said too much. I think this might be the problem.
Yeah.
I think if he had, the thing is, I thought, and I texted my friend this, I said he's doing Jericho 2012. When he dropped the mic and then he left or went to leave, and he picks back up and he dropped it again. Yeah. And in a weird way, I think that might have been better than what we got, because it kind of, he said too much.
It went on for long, didn't it? And I get the point they were making, but it's almost like in some ways nothing happened, so it's kind of, because Cody come out and basically was a good picture of, like, I'm everything you said you were, and I am that guy now. John Cena tried to little bro him, as they say, said, look, kid, and he's like, look, ain't kid, so I like that kind of interaction between the two characters, and the kind of difference between what Cody now is, what Cena once was. But it weren't earth-shattering, was it? I think it. Look, we could say, oh, look, he played us. He made. Oh, you're not getting the theme song. You're not getting a new look. But at the same time, I also weren't that entertained. Like, I enjoyed it and I got it, but like, I did want more. And it's like, I don't know, like. There was part of me thinking, oh, he'll do this stuff in future, then he'll change this stuff in future, because we've now just got Cody going, and again, the age-old thing of, I want the real John Cena, like, I want the old Stone Cold, one of those kind of things. It felt like we've seen this story a lot of times before, but what's Cena going to do? Just be a bit more perky now going forward, or just, you can't now have a new look and a new theme song, because he's already said, like, they've chose the direction, which is I'm not doing it, and like, you can buy my merch, but I don't dress like you. You dress like me. Like, the other way around. Like, whatever it was. It was like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's just like, obviously, people's heads have been in fantasy booker mode, haven't they, since it's happened? It's been obviously just over 2 weeks, obviously. Yeah. Since Chamber, since been off TV since then, and all we've done is replay the footage over and over and over again, since then. But I do think that. Yeah, I do think that somewhat decisions had been made and they've gone the way they've gone. I think next week's segment though and it really should, because next week we are going to be within a month of WrestleMania taking place. I think next week's segment needs to basically determine the direction of fully where we're going with the story, because at the moment I think what's upsetting is that, look, if it is going to be a rehash of stories like this we've seen before, when someone's going to turn and then they've done the whole blaming the fans and blah blah, like, we have seen that. And don't get me wrong, the caliber of the performers, Cody, Rhodes and John Cena, are able to tell that story. I think the problem is, from a fan perspective, this kind of once in a lifetime kind of level of turn deserves something more than the generic 100%. What we've seen before. Yeah. And at the moment it's going down that route, and don't get me wrong, it'll be a good version of that route because of the people involved, but I think we can just do a bit better here. We had the chance for something really groundbreaking. Like I said, he hadn't mentioned obviously The Rock and Travis Scott, and then I think as well, like, you know, as it kind of went on as well, you're just thinking, okay, but you know, how is this going to impact the feud we're going to see? I think we haven't really got that just yet. And I mean, you could argue like them doing this as on the European tour and not in front of the American audience potentially has altered this a little bit. That was the other problem I had with we fast forward to Seth Rollins' promo. Like he's talking and doing his promo as if there's an American audience there. Where, you know, the stuff that he's saying is meant to matter, but it's a European crowd and it's a bit different.
I do feel like, credit where it's due, it actually worked better than I thought it would, because that was my big fear going into it. I was like, how has Cena not had his first ever this monumental promo in front of an American audience? Not saying, oh, they deserve it more or whatever else, but like, that's their base, that's their ground level. My big fear was they were going to come to Europe and people would go, I'm happy to see Cena in his farewell tour, which they've been promoting anyway. They've got the merch for it and all that. He still wore it, by the way, which is funny. But then B, in Europe, we tend to be a bit like Canada, of like, we love the guy, you know, and like, cool bad guy. So I thought but to be fair to the fans in Brussels, they played their part. They did the John Cena sucks, but louder than we've maybe ever heard it before, because that became like the "you suck" chant. It became a kind of endearing chant, really. You know, they played it, he played into it, whatever. This time it's very different. So I was pleasantly surprised with that. So I don't think that was as much as an issue as it could have been. It was more that. So I think this is the same promo we would have got in America, essentially. But there wasn't enough substance for it. Like you say, it was a monumental heel turn, I should say. A big moment. It'd be interesting to go back and watch Hogan's first appearance post NWO. I've seen a lot of the early stuff, but I can't quite pinpoint what the first heel Hogan promo was. It'd be interesting to maybe compare the two, because of course that's the feud, the storyline, I should say, in the heel turn that this is getting compared to the most. We'll see, you know, if this is on that level come a few months from here. But at the moment, I've got to be honest, tonight didn't deliver as much as I wanted. I liked it. I'm intrigued, which is maybe all you need.
With the Hogan thing, is obviously he.
Go ahead. Sorry, cut out a bit there.
Yeah, I was saying, like, with the Hogan thing, obviously he established himself with the NWO like straight away, and I think that helped because it got you the answer. Because I think obviously the minute someone turns on someone, there's always the why, and then very quickly followed by like, okay, what's next? Like, is it going to be a turn that they're then going to have set up a match? Is it going to be a turn that's then going to escalate one of the people to have another match with someone else? You know, you got to ask the thing. And Hogan very quickly, he did it where he did a turn and straight away established, we are the NWO. This is why we're here. We're taking over. And so the goal was very, very simple. He wanted to become world champion. And so that goal was already kind of there. Don't get me wrong, Cena's goal was kind of there, I guess. He still wants to be WWE champion. But I think in the last 30 years... I'm sorry?
He barely even said that. Like, that's what I thought this was going to be. I did it because I need that title. He did more of that when he was still technically a babyface than he did on this program.
Yeah, I agree. There wasn't enough... Yeah, I think he spoke a lot about stuff, but not about the stuff that people actually wanted to speak about, which maybe is what we're going to get next week. And again, I don't think it's solely because of the location, but the location maybe has... And the fact, I guess, with respect, if he's looking at the fact he's now got to do 3 weeks of TV in a row, maybe they're thinking, okay, we've got to split things up over those 3 weeks, because with respect, he's probably not going to wrestle in any of these 3 TV shows. So it's a case of, you know, but I would have just kept this promo a bit shorter, particularly because you had the heat like built in already, so there was no need to overly speak. But I think in a weird way, speaking so much, he's kind of cost himself like a little bit. So I do maintain that once Cody got going, I said his piece, and then that last kind of final shot and walk up the ramp, I think that was quite powerful. Like him walking up the ramp to boos, like fully boos, not like dueling chants or anything like that, full boos, and him looking at the audience and just, there was kind of that look of disgust with them, but also is the disgust also on himself a bit. You know, like I think this is multi-layered. This is the thing. I do think this turn is everything about this is multi-layered. I think that, you know, it's not that, and that's why maybe I think we're both upset about parts of the promo, because parts of the promos made it seem like it was that default kind of turn, but I think it's more layered than that. I still think there's that inner battle. You know, John Cena, obviously he wants a 17th championship, and he's seen this as a possible avenue because the other avenues, well, one of the avenues closed on him with the Rumble, and obviously the Chamber. But even the Chamber, you know, he only won because Rollins,
in a heelish way, he took advantage of it. Yeah, maybe you're right.
Know,
like,
and he
let's go on. Sorry.
Yeah, I was saying that he stole that. He took the cheaper victory that night, didn't he, at the Chamber?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you could be right as well with that kind of internal battle thing. It could be that, because I do think he'll end the farewell tour as a babyface and win as a babyface, but that's another conversation for another day. But I do think that might come into this. You know, he might say, "Look, I was just trying to convince myself." Like, he's disappointed. Like it was, like you said, that final shot was powerful. As much as there were things about this I wish we got, I still enjoyed things we did see in it. And the opening bit and the last bit were probably the best parts, really. Of like, this is surreal. Like, I'm seeing John Cena come out, not just like him coming out with a new theme and new look would have been cool and great. And like, oh my gosh, this is a different guy. But it's also surreal seeing, the same guy come out. The babyface, like, dressed John Cena come out and be booed. Like it was basically like everyone had caught up to what, let's say 50% of the audience felt 15 years ago. It felt like One Night Stand or something like that. It felt like that kind of audience. So really, really interesting. A few comments we're going to get to here as well. Casper says, Penta versus Ludwig Kaiser was a good match on Raw tonight. We're going to get to that very soon because that was the next match on the card. Of course, Casper's been with us all night from the preview into the watch along and here onto the instant reaction review. Appreciate it, mate. I think we should have the Break a Wish John Cena. Yeah, he's got a campaign going for Break a Wish. If WWE don't make the t-shirt, which I understand why they wouldn't, maybe we will, is what we said earlier on. I'm back again. So glad to be watching this channel. Thank you so much, buddy. Appreciate you being in the house again. Look, let's break down the show in a bit more detail. Again, we had the opener for Cody Rhodes and John Cena there. We've touched on that quite a bit already. So let's move into the next match itself. Ludwig Kaiser versus Penta was great. I think it reminded me of last week on SmackDown because there was so many kind of hardcore spots. It feels like, I know it's a cliche thing to say, but there are a lot of things at the moment that do remind me of the Attitude Era. We are getting a bit more kind of hot shot on the titles, whether that's a good or a bad thing, and we are getting a bit more of kind of gimmicks and whatever else, and I've really enjoyed it lately. I liked all those spots on SmackDown, Tiffy jumping off the top, and again, if you want to say our thoughts on that in more detail, check out instant reaction review from that. Lucas was out in Barcelona, gave us the kind of ears to the ground report on it as well. But coming to tonight, again, the no holds barred match to open, which I think was a bit surprising as well, considering how great it was and how hard hitting it was quite surprising. But yeah, overall, Penta wins. Of course, he'll show up at the end of the show, which we'll get onto in a moment. Has an interview with Kathy Kelly and says, "Look, I want to be the Intercontinental Champion or the Pentacontinental Champion." Yeah, really looking forward to see where this could go. That's another story for another day. But at the moment, mate, what did you think of tonight's showing between him and Ludwig? I think they had great chemistry together.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, Penta's worked extensively with Ludwig since his debut, really, hasn't he? But had a few matches now. Obviously, Pete Dunne was involved with it too, and Chad Gable. But I think, like they've definitely done the right thing by him. Obviously, that little slip up at the Royal Rumble aside, I think that Penta's pretty much hit the ground running. In WWE, and I think that him getting involved in the IC title picture could only be a good thing. I think that, though, they will need to address the fact that Ludwig Kaiser has been such a bloody MVP and probably does deserve a lot more flowers than he does deserve. He's going to get, likely, as he's been a very integral part to getting Penta over. What I was saying while you were gone is obviously Ludwig Kaiser is one of the many people who are actually utilising the times in the breaks to do his promo, get over with the crowd, make all the matches that he's in seem quite important. Now, it's interesting because he's still kind of being presented with the Imperium stuff, but you never see him and Gunther together anymore.
No.
So I don't know whether whether it's something where now, obviously, he's taking this loss, this dude's over. Do we now see him kind of fully go solo, without Gunther or whatever? But it's weird, at one point, weren't they teasing, like, them two falling out and stuff.
They were, yeah.
It does seem a very Triple H trope, this, because even going forward into the show, Jey Uso beating Austin Theory, that also was Austin Theory and Grayson Waller was another one where they were teasing splitting up for ages, and then they just got back together, and nothing's happened since. But yeah, I think in terms of Ludwig Kaiser, I think that he's someone who should be getting as much TV time as is needed. But yeah, Penta obviously was. I mean, the reason why I guess it opened with this is obviously what happened at the end. They'd like do a whole book, don't they, of like something at beginning and end kind of thing. But it did feel. I mean, we spoke about this obviously when I was on during that period, but it did feel almost like the show really kind of got started and really ramped up from when the first match happened.
Yeah.
And it's still, was quite a brief show. I mean, just over 2 hours 25.
Yeah. They somehow, as you say, we were texting off air. It was 38 minutes before a match started, and yet we ended at what was it, 2:20, 2:10 or something like that? No, it wasn't that short, was it?
5 Sunday, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, but yeah, it's shocking the fact they managed to squeeze so much in. But again, because it really did ramp up after this point. But again, this match was fantastic. I think you're right. Ludwig deserves more. Just like with the top of the card, this period of the card is also stacked, where you're like Nakamura on the other side, Nakamura and LA Knight and all that title change. Then you got on the IC, you're like, oh, Braun makes sense, but Ludwig deserves it. But Penta's being pushed. You can see him being put in his position quite a way off. So it's we can't have it all, but at the same time, it'd be nice for Ludwig to get something as well. Casper really likes Penta. Also got what is it? We need Cody Rhodes and John Cena match. Yeah, they are enemies now. Going to see they're going towards WrestleMania. Ludwig, great. Also in agreement here as well. Been really good. And you got to jump out. No worries, man. Yeah, but thanks for joining us. Look, next up. We had the Kathy Kelly interview. Straight after that, we had the Dakota Kai Ivy Nile match. It was a fun match. Dakota Kai ends up winning. Quite an impressive way she wins with the GTK. What did you make of the presentation of this? Of course, we touched on it a little bit when you popped in for the your portion on the watch along, but it was strange to see Ivy Nile not pick up the win, because I think both of us went into it thinking, this is where she kind of catapults into something else. It seems more like, to me, that they're doing, again, we've already touched on it with other storylines, this descent between the team, and that maybe she's going to break away. But I genuinely think the best thing for her is to be within this stable. So I don't know what they're getting at here. Her leaving and becoming a babyface is too soon. So
yeah, it's too soon, and she's not credible enough to have done so because she hasn't done anything.
Yeah,
if you've been able to do something, then it'll make sense. But I just feel that this is probably a bigger topic for another day. But there's such a gap, on the women's roster between obviously the main event women and the other women that are there. And so I think that it definitely wouldn't be the right call for her to what do you call it? Yeah, for her to break away from America.
Yeah.
I felt it was a very bad night for American Made, obviously, as Ivy Nile lost this, and they went on Brutus and the Creed Brothers went on to lose to Ray and Dragon Lee.
Yeah.
But I do think that the overarching thing is this whole Chad Gable luchador thing. That seems
where
to
are
be
we going
more for now, which is weird because obviously when you think where it started, with them very much wanting championships, and then Chad Gable left to go to Mexico, but now it feels like they're kind of going back to that kind of comic relief kind of thing, which I don't know. I don't know if it's the right call. Obviously they've already had their title match against Viking Raiders, but surely with there not being too many tag teams on Raw, they could just have another title match and just win the belts, and then
they should probably be champs. Like Viking Raiders weren't on the show.
There's obviously you have got Judgment Day, but they're kind of feuding with each other. It seems they're kind of falling out of each other, and I can't think of other tag teams that could be anywhere really near the belts. Obviously, this is where I think SmackDown's kind of done it much better job. Where you've got 4 or 5 tag teams who could all vie for the gold, whereas Raw, I can only really think of, like I said, you've got Viking Raiders and you've got obviously American Made. We shall see next week though, as obviously there could be an interest development happening with the Raw Tag Division. And Casper, I thought Dakota Kai should have won, and she did win. Okay, and Lucas Bad Night for American Made. That's what we're discussing now. But it just seemed Dakota Kai's got a strong fan base. Because obviously it did seem that a lot of people did want her to win. The IC title a few weeks back off Live Rock. Again, another one. I just feel sometimes. I felt tonight. The reason why I thought is maybe just okay is I felt like there just wasn't. There was spots when there just wasn't really like a lot of wrestlers on the show. Like when you really add it up and you realise that they kind of had American Made and LWO in 2 segments.
Spread over,
And your Judgment Day were kind of the only backstage people that you saw. And Kathy, just using Kathy Kelly as the interviewer for everything.
You're right. It's another thing that made it feel a bit more like a live event or house shows, they call them, because that's what you get at house shows. They bookend stories. They, it weren't a bad show. It was not a bad show. Let's put that out there.
It wasn't bad. It's just I think
a little different to the Barcelona show, though.
I think also we're at the stage now. I do think really like this week should be the week, where they are setting up the other stuff at Mania. Like, with respect now, Mania, we only know 2 matches. We're kind of alluding at other ones, but it's like that's okay to an extent. But we are getting to the point where, we need to know, okay, what's going to happen with some of these matches now.
Yeah, let's commit.
Let's commit, even if it's for the wrong. But then, so I guess we covered the Ivy Nile thing already. That went into the contract signing.
Yeah.
Which again, we covered while we were here anyway. But just to obviously kind of repeat for new viewers, obviously we saw Io Sky come out, Bianca Belair came out, and they kind of signed the contract, and there wasn't a problem. Which was one of the first times ever of that happening.
Until
a little bit like Bianca was, kind of like a little chip on her shoulder. Like she wasn't full on baby face, but I don't think she really did enough to be a villain. And I guess some of that also is because she's linked in with this Jade Cargill Naomi business, which but as it seems that she's basically de facto now on Raw and she's away from it, it just seemed that. It'd be very weird if they then say it was her,
I think
involved.
The opportunity is either post Mania or Mania itself to bring her back into it. I think she's got 2 storylines going on at once. So I think you're right. They've kind of stepped off it a little bit. Of course, on SmackDown we're going to see Jade and Liv, which you'd imagine there'd be some sort of Naomi situation kind of progress there. And they do seem to have kind of moved Bianca over. But what we saw from her in the Jade feud, or worried about or thought about if you're a Bianca babyface fan, is that some of those traits are bleeding into this other feud that she's involved in with Io and of course now Rhea as well.
And obviously we spoke about the weird dynamic there is, because there is definitely 2 baby faces, maybe 3.
Maybe 1, who knows at the moment.
And the reason why we're saying maybe 3 is because that segment, although the initial contract was signed perfectly and everything was fine, we then saw Rhea Ripley come out, and Rhea Ripley, like, this is the thing, like we spoke about it before, like I do think she kind of came across a bit villain to some extent, as she had obviously kind of had that reaction to losing the title the way she did, and then obviously having this promo tonight. But she then signed the contract, and like WWE have made it very kind of clear in both the commentary and obviously in the backstage segment that she had later on with Adam Pearce, that this signature is not official, it doesn't count, but it does very much feel like they are going to go into a direction of a triple threat between the 3 women at Mania, and it's one which, to be fair, I'm actually for. I think particularly with the at present the other kind of world title matches all being singles affairs, I am up for. I think one of them should not be a singles affair. And obviously triple threat. This seems like a very different way to do a triple threat, like to set one up anyway, which I think is quite interesting, with the former champion obviously trying to get her way in by any means. But it'd be interesting seeing kind of what happened, because I do think that surely Bianca or Rhea have got to turn heel going into Mania. They definitely can't really have it. I guess Io Sky could turn, but I think it'll be easier if she doesn't, if it's not her, if it's one of the other 2, because I think there's a lot of support for Io Sky. I think they'd be kind of wasting that by turning her,
Yeah.
when the fans aren't ready to accept that. But I think they're definitely ready to accept a Bianca Belair turn, and Rhea's been heel previously anyway, so I think one of those two would make sense. But yeah, I do think it's gearing up to that. I don't imagine them. I don't see why they'd
Teasing
bother
it
having
and not,
Rhea.
yeah.
And there's not enough time to do anything like before. Like this is where before they had like a pay-per-view, like a fast lane or a roadblock, they're going to do the typical. Oh, okay, well, if Rhea can beat Bianca, then she get the title shot. There's not enough time to redo any of that. So I think it's just a case of by next week they're probably going to announce that match as a triple threat. But the other stories, the ones we're lacking, ones we're kind of missing, and hopefully we do see some more of those in the coming weeks, like in a nice possible way. Like AJ Styles and Logan Paul, we need to be seeing them in segments together. If that's going to be one of the main matches from the Raw brand, anyway.
Although the thing that might make that feel a little bit more kind of necessary now is that we're at mid to getting into late March, and by this point, usually we're not far away from WrestleMania, but we're actually just over a month away from WrestleMania. So obviously WrestleMania is later this year in April. So maybe we're feeling a little bit more antsy because we've, the Rumble was a while away. We're moving away from the Chamber now as well. I mean, they were a little bit later than usual as well. Definitely the Rumble at least. So maybe that's playing into it. But yeah, I agree with you. We've got to start seeing some storyline progression where it's clear about some of these matches, even though, like, as you say, we know what some of them are, but they need to start getting them in the books. And the European tour's probably a little bit in the way of that. So it'll be interesting to see how much they do on the tail end of the European tour, which, by the way, 2 of the shows are in London. So it looks like London might get some of the most kind of impactful storyline progression events anyway. A few extra comments here as well. Casper says, oh, there we go. We had that one about Dakota Kai, but this one says, I mean, Samantha Irvin, she was great in commentary. They even let Lillian Garcia go with her again from SmackDown. Her work in commentary was amazing. Yeah, big fan of Lydian from back in the day. Howard Fink was always my number one. Really appreciated Samantha as well. But yeah, it looks like Lillian's job was to essentially to step in for a little bit. Apparently, she's still going to be involved with things like Saturday Night's main event. So she's not fully gone, apparently. So it'd be nice to see what she does. Apparently, a few projects in the pipeline between her and WWE. Always nice to see Lillian back as well. But I'd imagine they've got someone in line to permanently replace Samantha now, and that's why they've made that decision. Let's move on to the next part of the show. As we say, we saw Rhea Ripley kind of shoehorn herself into the match, but then we saw a very, very quick match. This is the period, once again, that Lucas was on the watch along. He jumped out the stream. And as I say, I wouldn't have been surprised if he hopped back in to go, wow, what happened there? Because it was so shockingly quick. We had Jey Uso against Austin Theory. Yes, we did see Gunther arrive. He did have that little back and forth with Jey behind the scenes backstage before they were going through Gorilla, essentially. Jey Uso won very quickly, as I say. Started to get the Yeet Party going. And as you expected, Gunther arrived. Not much really as far as kind of big topics to talk about here. I think it's one of those typical kind of it did what it needed to do. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the yeeting is probably longer than the match, I'm guessing.
Wait, if you had to look back on it, it probably was, especially with the break that we get to see the international stream of Netflix. I think you're right. It would have been longer than the match.
I mean, we talked about tag teams earlier, like obviously the tag team here, Grayson Waller and Austin Theory out and down under. Like they're one where you're just like struggling. I'm struggling with being like, well, why are they not?
Yeah.
Why are they not near belts or anything? They've kind of been used for like several different bits and pieces. But yeah, no, I think ultimately, I guess the goal is with a lot of the people, obviously they want to keep people fresh from Mania and, don't want people picking up it. No, it's just that kind of that red zone, essentially. Like, you don't want people picking up injuries, do you? Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't want to risk that. So I think that that's just where we're at with it. And I guess Austin Theory nowadays is disposable, like
Such
that.
A shame. Such a shame.
And I get that. Obviously, Gunther the match on SmackDown as well. So I can see where they're going with it, but it does feel also like, the way you look at the fact they gave half an hour of the show to Cena and Cody to have a promo, and they could barely give Jay and Gunther, 5 minutes all in pretty much. I think it is now just showing that there is a main event of WrestleMania, and then there's the Jey Uso title match.
That's a great point. Yeah, that is a great point. I do think there's a chance they make them headline night one because of the feel good moment that we could potentially see. But that's a big difference.
I think it's not open. I think it's not open night one. I think that's I think they might actually do. I'm actually hoping they do this way, where they do one of the women's matches, most likely this triple threat. Actually, they put that on as a night one main event, and then they open night two with Charlotte and Tiffy, and then close night two with Cena and Cody. But I have a feeling this Rollins, Reigns, Punk thing is most likely going to go in my night one main event slot. Yeah, potentially creating a double main event for that night with women maybe before. But I do kind of think that, you've got the Rumble winners, you've got the Chamber winners, they should be in the prominent spots. And I think at Mania, those are the ones in a weird way. And I guess this is more for the Mania stream but because we're seeing obviously 3.5 hours each night now, we're not seeing like two short shows, we're seeing like two full-on shows like back to back, along with SmackDown, Hall of Fame, NXT and all the other stuff. But yeah, no, I think I was okay with it. They did a promo afterwards, didn't they? So they're coming to Glasgow and they want a tag match obviously next week.
Who do you think we're gonna get to? I see the comments coming in, by the way, guys. We're gonna get to your comments very soon, don't you worry. But just gonna throw it to Lucas for this though, because I want to know who you think is gonna be Jey Uso's tag partner. I mean, the obvious one is his brother, Jimmy Uso. A nice little return of the Usos on the way to WrestleMania. That'd be nice. That would give Jimmy a bit of a boost as well. Maybe Drew gets involved, maybe Gunther gets involved. I don't know. I mean, Drew's not really part of that storyline anymore, is he? But I would have liked to have seen Drew and Jimmy in WrestleMania, is what I'm kind of getting to. But yeah, if it's not Jimmy, who could it be? We were talking earlier on the stream. Aidan was talking to us, and he's from Scotland, so he said maybe a Scottish wrestler, and we kind of quickly stumbled upon maybe it's going to be Joe Hendry. The minute I saw the graphic go up, I said it's got to be his brother. If it's not his brother, it's Joe Hendry. Those are the only two that I think they can do this with. By this, I mean the whole mystery partner. I think if mystery partner announcing on the night. I think if later in the week, if something happens on SmackDown or on social media, and then you get another partner, and it is R-Truth or something, it's like fair enough. That's no disrespect to R-Truth, obviously. No, we love R-Truth here at this channel.
If it is that, but if it is going to be something like that, I think just announce it so people know. But I think the surprise is Jimmy Uso, obviously, because he's on SmackDown and they haven't obviously teamed together for a while. Or since War Games, technically, that's the last time they obviously came back together. Or it's going to be Joe Hendry to get that local pop and to get him on to appease people. But so they set that up for next week. And that was kind of done really quickly via this short match and promo just afterwards. What happened after that?
Well, after that was LWO America. Before we get to that, I'm just going to throw over some of these comments here as well. Casper says Austin Theory versus Waller would be good. Yeah, it's a storyline that is kind of plugging along for about a year or two now, and it's strange we didn't get it. We covered NXT a while back, which, by the way, we haven't done too much on this channel recently, but we're looking to do more of it. And of course, as we get to Stand and Deliver, we'll try and cover that in detail as well. Adam Miller says Dirty Dom's name sounds like a well, you know what he said there, but yeah, I think you might be right with that one. It does. It does work in both industries. I think you're right there, buddy. Universal says John Cena is the worst heel turn and is the worst heel turn and the worst heel turn promo in wrestling history. Yeah, look, you know what? This instant reaction is fun because it is exactly that. It's our instant reaction. If you want to see our reaction in a moment, you see our watch along as well. But you can see our brains are working basically at the time because a few days away from this, I might feel differently, but I'm kind of all over the place. There were things, I wouldn't say it's the worst in history, but I wanted more. But I also like some of the things I saw as well. Now, Universal says it was also who wrote that crap, who approved that crap. Look, again, we've touched on the Cena promo in depth already. If you're joining us late, buddy, head to the beginning of the stream. If anyone else is joining us at the moment on the live stream, go back to the beginning of it. We touched on that in a little bit more detail as well. But overall, the sense is that, yeah, it was different to what we expected, but it was still some good things. We'll have to see where it's going. But I think we all expected more, let's be honest. Now, Casper says, I agree with Lucas. Night 1 main event, Reigns, Rollins, and Punk. Night 2, Cena versus Cody. I think that's probably the most likely, but I do like your idea, Lucas, of doing the women bookend, not bookending, but like the end of a show and the beginning of a show as well. I think that's a good way to. So we'll see if that does happen.
Hopefully by Friday we are going to get that explanation about what's going on with this Rollins Reigns Punk thing and what it's going to be for. But it feels a bit much. If they are going to do a triple threat, it's like, well, what's it for? Is it even on a contendership? Is it just like, winner gets Heyman or something? I don't know. Like, what I mean, what stakes are we seeing? Or is it just for me? Very much feels like they don't want someone pinning someone, at Mania. Because obviously you've got the problem where it's like, well, either Punk's got to take his first loss at Mania, Reigns has got to lose back-to-back at Mania, or Rollins has got to be pinned by Punk again.
It is tough.
Kind of avoid happening.
I think that it kind of makes sense to, again, I think it might have been Aiden on a watch-along. Apologies if it was someone else and I'm crediting Aiden too much here. But essentially the comment said, maybe the favor comes in and Heyman screws Roman. I mean, you'd have to turn Punk heel to do that. I mean, the feud at the moment, to their credit, is that the guys just hate each other, and they do have history to be fair, and they are big names, so that's probably why it will main event. But main event in a night at WrestleMania without a title, is that really Punk's? Is that Punk's dream of a main event at WrestleMania? I'm not sure if it is, but and
then also, we've spoken about this previously. This whole 2-night show, the second night one is the actual main event.
Let's let them have it.
I mean, it would be odd having a non-title match as a main event of WrestleMania.
Yeah.
But we did have Kevin Owens against Stone Cold. That was
true. About that was a lot of fun.
We have had Rock and Cena talk about the first one wasn't for a title. It's once in a lifetime, wasn't it?
True.
So we have seen it previously, and some of the earlier Manias in particular did have multiple non-championship matches go on last. But it would feel odd in this day and age, especially with the amount of belts they've got. This is the thing. Like, you can't tell me a company with like that many belts, still can't put one on last. But
with 2 world titles, 2 women's world titles as well.
Tags. Even in the IC in the US, you could argue they get the right story for that. But anyway, I do think that. I do think we will obviously address that for SmackDown later this week from Italy, as that obviously would be where one would assume that triple threat's going to be locked in place.
Yeah,
because I do think they need to make sure, again, they're big names. We're talking about Reigns, Rollins, Punk. People do need to know what are we getting at Mania with them, and I think by Friday we will know that match locked in, and so. Obviously, we may as well at the same time. I know we're skipping a little bit around with this, but let's just talk about Rollins' promo in terms of from what we saw tonight. Now, this might divide my opinion with the fan base quite a lot here, but I'm kind of getting a bit fed up with the entrance music from him and from Jey Uso. Jay's kind of makes sense because he's got the whole kind of viral moment, but I think Rollins' one is now just becoming just like quite annoying to the point of like, and I think it was more annoying because he again didn't really say anything. Cena already, again we addressed that, but a lot of his promo was just not saying much. And Rollins, though, took the biscuit where he just didn't say anything at all.
No, you know what? It wasn't as bad as Paul Heyman promoting a game to tell you that Roman's going to be there next week and not here tonight. But it was still, it weren't great. And I look, I understand they want to give the people in Brussels the chance to sing the song because they haven't had that opportunity, for example, and to kind of hijack the show and do that. But I genuinely thought that was going to happen in the break, where we get to see the extra bits sometimes.
Yeah.
Again, some international fans may not get to see this, but generally speaking, here in the UK, they continue to stream. If it's not a promo shot, it will be the match continuing or an entrance or maybe a promo off air. And I thought that's what that was going to be, but no, it was part of the main broadcast. It went on for a bit, and yes, Seth didn't really say much, but promote next week, maybe again, like you say, to sell some tickets. So a little bit disappointed there, but I get it, and I think it plays into his character as well, like how, like his perception of his character, I should say, that people were just thinking, like, again, it's getting a little stale, and it's I feel bad for him in some ways because, like, everyone's like, oh, we're singing this song, but quickly after a few seconds, people start going, oh, I'd love to see Punk, and they start chanting for Punk, and he must think, come on, guys, I'm here, and then you get the Roman stuff. So I think he should turn heel, is what I'm saying. Like,
the thing is, I thought he did turn.
Well, yeah, like a heel, but it's in this world where we've got not straight good guys and bad guys. All right, let's get to a few more of these comments, and then we'll move on to the next part of the show as well. Universal has a few more things to say about Cena's promises. Nothing in the promo made sense. They waited 3 weeks to write something good, and we get this nonsensical crap. Look, I think, as Lucas said earlier on, we hyped ourselves up for something that we didn't get. And again, I think part of it was to play into, you know what? You want a new theme? You want a new look? We ain't going to give it to you. And I do think that was clever, but there's a risk of us just going, or did they just like not book it right? So we'll have to see how it plays out. We're trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, but Universal says he killed his own interview by saying he's not heel in the face. They did have that kind of moment. Again, this is a new era in WWE where you do apparently mention that stuff on TV. Cuckoo says Universal. Casper says, but I've been one in main events for women, but it's Roman Reigns after all. Yeah, it does feel like Roman Reigns, the age-old thing, right? First or last, and it feels like he'll probably be last. But I want to get what was that? But I do want to get the women as main event matches. Yeah, me too. I think if it deserves it, it should be in it. We don't want to just shoehorn things in. But again, the Jey Uso thing could go on last if they build it to that. What was you going to say?
The thing is, I mean, like, the deserve that argument matters to an extent. But the thing is, WWE's booking dictates that the Rumble winner is meant to main event WrestleMania.
But we've seen it even on the one night days. The one night days when there was two titles, they didn't always do it.
You've got 4 people who rightfully should be in a final match. And you can only do 2 of them. So then obviously you could argue by process of elimination, under what interest of fairness, that one should go to the women and one should go to the men. So whether they want to do, the Bianca Belair triple threat on last one night, or whether they want to do Charlotte Flair on last one night, and then the other night they have Cena match. But then we know most likely what we're saying now just isn't going to happen, because if they are going to have this Roman Reigns Rollins Punk match, that is going to probably go on last on night 1.
Or maybe first on night 1, and away you said it with the triple threat. There is a possibility, but again, it depends on we'll get a clearer answer as the weeks go on. I mean, strictly speaking, that match don't exist yet. As you say, we might get an announcement on SmackDown. So who knows about that one? Universal said about Cena as well. He looked like a deer in the headlights. He obviously didn't want to be there, and also says nothing done on TV live series, not rehearsed over during the day before showtime. Again, this was horrible. The best part was Cody saying F is this whiny and beat me up. But I agree with Lucas as Casper. The entrance of Seth is getting a little bit annoying. And Casper also says Gunther and Jay as the night 1 main event. All right, let's move away from WrestleMania for just a little bit now and carry on with what happened on the show itself. We touched on it a little bit already, but LWO faced off against American Made. I got to say, man, as much as this was a shoehorned in match and it felt kind of house show-esque, it was quite enjoyable, especially the end of it. I think they really ramped it up the last kind of few spots. And quite a fun match overall. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I just felt a bit sorry for American Made, really. I think obviously they're shifting to now doing the feud with the kind of story with the whole luchador stuff, and so it seems like their title dreams are kind of gone. But I did feel, but I still just kind of felt, I guess with LW they lost at New Day, one of those where. But I do think we do need to start seeing some wins happen for American Made. Because much
they're
as
all
people,
amazing. They're all
yeah,
so good.
but as much as people will sit here and say wins and losses don't matter, it's like they do in WWE because, like it gets to a point where if you've taken too many losses, anything you do is just no longer valuable.
Yeah,
and people won't take it as a threat. It's like
yeah,
in the latter stage of their careers when Big Show or Kane would challenge for a world championship. Like you
yeah.
could almost guarantee they wouldn't be leaving with the belt because
Mm.
we just had seen this done like so many times before. And they were always just those kind of like first guys like to go against someone because
Yeah,
they could eat the loss. So we need people. We don't want to. You don't want to be putting people like American Made, fantastic athletes that they are, in a position where they're like that.
mm.
Match itself though, like it was fine. Like I think, but it's best that last kind of home stretch. Like I think this is where WWE's polishing of stuff really comes in to thing. They get that back end of a match like is done really well. Even if, like you say, there's times where you don't agree with the finish, don't agree with obviously some of the distractions or who wins or whatever. You can't really say that the back end of a WWE match isn't like good, particularly when obviously there's people like Rey Mysterio and that like in the ring. But it just leaves the question of like what next for American Made other than this kind of thing with the luchador stuff, which just for me just takes them away from the title picture. And then it's like, well, who for the title picture then? And the only other team really that we could mention is obviously A-Town Down Under, who very much are in like elsewhere. And so I don't know where they'd go, particularly if they, if it's like more like when they do lose next week to Jey Uso and mystery partner.
Maybe Jimmy or Hendry,
Where do you, how do you then put A-Town Down Under kind of in the title picture or any team in the title picture?
Yeah, because you're right. It's quiet. The only thing that would fix it is maybe a draft, and we'd imagine there'll be a draft after WrestleMania at some point anyway. But that's it. That to me suggests, well, these titles won't be anything to do with WrestleMania then. But I mean, the card will be stacked regardless. It won't be a surprise if there are titles not featured. That's happened plenty of times before. But it's not a good sign, is it? So that was the what was it? What was I was going to say? Seth Rollins thing came after this, but that was the LWO American Made. Then it was the Seth Rollins thing, and then we did get into the main event, which was the IC title being defended by Bron Breakker versus Finn Balor. And again, another example of what made it feel again a bit more like a house show / live event, because there was a tiny part of me that thought Finn might win it. I thought St. Patrick's Day, we're here, have a Guinness, raise a toast for him, and let's see, it might work out and all that, but. Nah, he didn't win it. Instead, they went into the same old storyline of dissension within the ranks of the Judgment Day. And I just, why? Are we going to get a Judgment Day match at WrestleMania or something like that? Because if you're splitting up the Judgment Day, it's got to mean something. And if you turn in, and I don't think they are, but if you're going to say, let's turn one of them babyface and it ends up being Dominic Mysterio, it's got to be massive. I think Dominic's face turn has to be huge. So, and it has to be worth it. So I don't think we're getting that. So what the hell are we getting with the Judgment Day? And what was this all about?
Well, it just feels like they want to do Finn versus Dom. But then I was thinking it when I was watching the match, like, who's the bad guy in this?
Yeah.
Like, because Dom's
who
obviously
stays the bad guy.
I'm sorry?
Who would stay the bad guy?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Who would? I mean, the thing is, the heat that Dom gets is unreal. So I kind of think him. Yeah, and obviously he has the live thing, and the live stays with him. I find it very hard for people to feel sympathetic to Dom again. And I'm going to extend this broader to whilst Rey Mysterio is on the active roster. And I might even extend it further to while Rey Mysterio is still employed by WWE. Like, while there's still that kind of threat of anytime Dom speaks, we can hear Booyaka, 619. Like, I mean, while that still is the case, I think you just cannot turn Dom babyface.
No.
The only way you could is if he was to team again or come to the aid of his father.
I think it has to be. I think the Judgment Day. I mean, this could, to be honest, this could be where we go with it, because I thought it could have happened in the past few Manias as well. I think I mean, Judgment Day aren't as strong as they once were, which is why I'm thinking it's
No.
not happening at the moment. But it could. They could turn it into this. But the way I've always wanted it to play out is that Dom is a heel and he's starting to think differently, and we're starting to think maybe he's going to turn and he saves his dad, like, you know, from the Judgment Day, or he faces his dad. Mask versus career, hair versus whatever the heck you want to do, essentially, whether it's depending on where we are in Ray's career. I don't think he's retiring this year, for example. But if he did retire, or whatever he does at the end of it, you know, break down and hug his dad and get the mask or something like that. You know, like, I would love if Ray unmasked and gave it to Dom. I would. That would be an amazing way for Ray to go out. I just don't think Ray's doing it this year. So how long can you keep Dom heel for to do that?
I think Dom's now his own entity about his father in a weird way. Like I said, I think why obviously I touched upon just now, the only way I could really see him turning babyface would be him obviously siding with his dad. I kind of think that he's kind of his own thing now.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I think the only reason to go back to him versus his dad is if it's explored other avenues that haven't worked. Casper, sorry, I get that, Lucas. You just can't. You can't turn Dom babyface. I mean, that's my take. And I think a lot of the fans will feel the same because there's still just so much love and goodwill towards Rey Mysterio, and he's one of those names where I think he just kind of transcends the company in a way where people, as in, even if he was to leave or he retires or he gets injured or whatever, you know, like I think he's still one of those where people would always just love him. You know, so I think it's very hard for people to get behind Dom. But yeah, so a few things keep coming up with this Judgment Day thing. So obviously there has been the whole like kind of rumor about getting a new member, which would have made sense, like particularly when they were trying to win the tag belts.
JD's out now as well.
That ship sailed. Yeah, JD's obviously injured as well. But that ship sailed. But then they've got the fact that Liv and Raquel were successful at winning the women's tag belts. So they are kind of on the way out, but they're not. So does this maybe mean that there's more of like a doubt? There might be more of a power struggle for leadership within the Judgment Day. You could argue because Finn's plans are all not working. He didn't win the Royal Rumble. He didn't win the IC title. He didn't qualify for the Chamber. Like he did all this stuff that's happened with Finn. Like, you know what I mean? Like he hasn't done all this stuff. So now, is it where we see Dom want to become the de facto leader of the Judgment Day and have his vision, his version of what he wants to have happen, and that then annoys Finn, and then Finn breaks away.
I would like that, especially if Finn became the babyface one and Damian Priest rejoined him or something like that, or even Rhea. I know that might feel like a backward step in some ways, but if Dom stayed as the heel leader with the kind of new street trash or whatever we're going to call it, Liv and Raquel, Carlito, maybe even JD stays over that side as well, and then maybe you get the rest of them. Screw it. Throw R-Truth in as an official member as the side split version of the Judgment Day as well. There is definitely something they can do with that. But we'll see where the Judgment Day goes. What do you think of the match overall? I mean, Judgment Day shenanigans played into the end, of course, where there was action where Finn fell round. You know what? And ended up losing the match. But then the Judgment Day then tried to make it up to Finn by attacking Braun at the end. Penta came out, of course, and a mutual respect moment for the end for the end of the show, essentially, between the two of them. Interesting to see where that goes as far as baby faces go. But before we get into the IC title picture going forward, what did you think of the match overall? Was there any kind of part of your brain that thought that Finn might win?
No, I think it's what we spoke about, the amount of title change they've done on the television main events recently. And I think it would have been a bit excessive to do like yet another one, particularly after they just did one on Friday. But I think, to be fair, the one done on Friday maybe gave Finn a bit more hope because people think, oh, it happened on Friday, it can happen again, kind of thing. But yeah, I think, you know, Braun, we haven't seen, I keep saying this, we just have not seen enough of Braun Breaker. He should be definitely within the first kind of, you know, if I was running the show, he'd be definitely within the first kind of 5 people you want to book. Like, I don't understand why.
Yeah. Look, I'd say he's done a lot.
This guy off.
He's done a lot. He's been a champ for a long time. He's been featured in good matches with good people. But I think he could easily be someone who shows up in the first 20 minutes off or last 20 minutes of a show. Yes, tonight he was in the last 20-minute show. Don't get me wrong. But, like, generally speaking, he could be in that picture more. But I guess if you're an IC champ and they do have 2 world titles, maybe it's not the time for that. But he does seem to have plateaued in the past few months.
Which is weird considering, obviously, he had so much virality for, obviously, the ISHO Speed Spear. Like,
yeah.
Get that guy on and just have him do his spear. Like, have him just, even if you had him do, like, a couple of, like,
yeah.
Like, local competitors and stuff. I mean, it just feels a bit, like he has just kind of disappeared from TV, it felt like. And it does also, another thing that we'll talk about, I start very shortly, I guess. But, but look, the match itself was fine. Like, they're both solid in the ring, and I'm guessing someone like Braun's picking up stuff working from people like your Finn Balor, someone who's obviously very, very experienced in this. And Braun is just an absolute freak. Like, it's crazy seeing the way he wrestles. And I thought the match was decent. Obviously, Judgement shenanigans are bound to happen. It's literally what they do. It's literally their calling card. And I thought that was fine. I'm still just thinking there's just too much of them. The throwing people into and over or next to the announce table. I think it's being way overdone.
Yeah. It probably is for that big spot that you mentioned earlier on, emphasizing that it's reinforced and eventually it breaks. But yeah, every show there's like straight away from the beginning of the show. I think the first segment.
Yeah, sometimes there's multiple even in the same match.
Yeah.
I think they need to just be careful of that. There's a few other ones as well, but that's one which is really kind of grinding my gears at the moment. Where I'm just like, every time I see it, I'm like, why? Why are you doing this again? But yeah, Judgement shenanigans. Match itself was fine, but I think obviously what's more interesting and maybe more of a discussion point for us to discuss, obviously, is the post match. To me, this is what it also almost made. Part of it did kind of feel house show because obviously you had the whole villains lose and they attack and the babyface does a save, and then. But then also I guess it does just make sense based on them obviously wanting to basically showcase the Judgment Day as like one unit, and then Penta comes out. Now, obviously, Braun seems to have flipped quite a lot, in this title run, like from being a good guy and a bad guy.
Yeah.
And obviously, this is the WWE we're in now, isn't it? Where things just are like that for whatever reason. But I would have to imagine they're not going to want the crowd to boo Penta.
No.
So you have to imagine that if they're not doing face-face, that they want to do it as Braun as bad guy.
Yeah, true.
I think there's quite an easy story that they could tell of this, where obviously, Braun can do the whole like, last year I was a shiny new toy that everyone cared about and everyone liked. Now, going up, and I'm basically gonna destroy you. And with Braun, it's just easy, isn't it? Because he's just that kind of guy where he's a freak of nature, and so I think you just build the match up around that. But someone who I think is being done dirty in this, I have to say it, and it's St. Patrick's Day as well, so it's even more relevant. Is Sheamus. Like I just
I forgot about him. Good point. That proves the point.
I don't know when he was actually last on TV. Is again, like there's so many people. There's obviously I get there's only so many spots, so many things, but there's some people I just look at like and think, how are you not finding time for these people, on the TV? Like on doing anything like Sheamus. I think he hasn't had a match since he lost to Braun.
Yeah, and that was all the kind of typical story that we seem to get these days with Sheamus of like, he might finally do it. And I at the time I remember thinking, maybe it's not now, but it's the WrestleMania. But at the moment, it looks like he's nothing to do with WrestleMania. He'll be on the panel with the pre-show or something like that. As is really strange. As you're saying, St. Patrick's Day as well. Finn made a word in Ireland. Don't get me wrong, it was in Brussels, but still. It is a reminder of a guy that could be featured, even in like a backstage jokey thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to have to make either the IC title or US title a multi-person match.
Yeah,
like there's so because
it's going to be a lot of multi-person matches.
Okay, what you can do Penta versus Braun, like fair enough, fair match.
Yeah.
then like what you're gonna leave like Ludwig, Pete Dunne, Sheamus. I can't think of other people, but there's quite a number of people, on the Raw roster. We're thinking they probably deserve to serve something on WrestleMania weekend. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it very much does seem anyway for now that they have set up. Penta definitely getting a title shot.
Has to be. Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to see it next week or if that is going to be the Mania match. But also, obviously, something we didn't touch upon just yet, but we have had AJ Styles. Obviously, he had a backstage promo where he was approached by Karrion Kross and Scarlett.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the thing about Karrion Kross mimicking the hairstyles.
His hair, yeah. I mentioned it on the watch along as well because
so brilliant.
The Sami Zayn impression, I don't know if you saw that, was amazing, by the way, which you did on Twitter. But then he's like, so someone mentioned it on Twitter and was like, did you notice how he put his hair like, and he replied to it. He said something along the lines of like, oh, you're paying attention or something like that. So Karrion Kross is doing this stuff on purpose. He did the little puppet hand thing. His photo, the picture on his shirt is showing the same sort of thing. So I like what Karrion Kross has been doing. But yeah, it was all about the AJ Styles Logan Paul thing. So how does Karrion Kross fit into this?
Yeah, it very much feels like he's gonna be like the side quest while up until Mania. But I kind of think he has been doing this with like a lot of people, like I said, with the Sami Zayn. He got into the head with the Miz and with Woods.
Did he have one with like Roman Reigns as well when he came in for like on SmackDown or something when he first came back? Yeah, he's been a lot of side quests. A lot of people side quests basically.
And it's that kind of like, but what it's now just thinking what the end goal is. Like, it's all right, kind of doing it a little bit, but is it leading to something? I think it needs to probably have within the next couple of weeks something happen. In ring or something to happen. But it did very much feel like AJ Styles at one point was going to go after Braun at Mania. And obviously you got Logan Paul as well. So there's a number of things kind of going on. But I did find it quite interesting. I thought the presentation of the segments with Karrion Kross have been decent. And I think it's more of that kind of stuff that we need in general. Not just to go back to the same Judgment Day or whatever storyline or bloodline as on SmackDown. But get some of the other people on TV that way. And just let them cook. See what results you're going to get. But it does seem very much like AJ Styles is still kind of chasing after Logan Paul, and that looks like that's kind of a match that's going to be set for Mania.
Well, it's possible though that they'd start squeezing these together though. I mean, I could see those guys with Penta, with Braun, with Karrion in like a 5-6 person IC ladder match. It wouldn't be out of the ordinary too much to do something like that at Mania. So it doesn't seem like that's what we're getting at the moment, but that would be a way to kind of squeeze people in and save a match essentially, or save splitting up matches basically.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, it just depends what they're going for Mania, I guess, isn't it? Like, obviously, I think we're usually getting like 6 or 7 matches per night, and obviously you got the SmackDown as well. But you're always leaving multiple talent off the show. To even talent that are on TV regularly, because a lot of people don't seem to have like a clear path to obviously WrestleMania. What they'll be doing. And AJ Styles does seem like he'd have a path by Logan Paul, but Karrion Kross is like, I can't say he's got a path to WrestleMania. Jimmy Uso, again, another one we spoke about earlier.
Jimmy. I would love to have seen Jimmy and Drew, but Drew's tied up elsewhere with Damian, which again, I think on SmackDown they started to make that feud make a bit more sense as well. If you haven't already, guys, check out our instant review reaction review, I should say, to that one as well. But hey, we can't all be on Mania, Lucas. After all, there is WrestleMania SmackDown they could bring back.
Yeah.
Of course. Maybe not. Casper says Lucas makes a lot of sense. Get some of the guy on TV. Yeah, always good to have Lucas in the house and getting his thoughts on this as well. But yeah, that's pretty much bringing us towards the end of the show, guys. Really, really fun evening overall. Appreciate everyone that's joined us on this watch along experience and instant reaction review that you're now watching as well. If you've been watching live or if you're watching on demand, we appreciate you. Keep getting your comments in. We'll try and react to those over the next few days as well. And again, appreciate everyone that joined us on the watch along. If you didn't see that, go back and watch it. If you want to see our original thoughts on what happened as it happened, you've got that there as well. Before we do get out of here though, Lucas, just want to ask you a few simple questions. First of all, if you could pick a match of the night, who would you pick?
Match of the night was probably the first match, Penta and Ludwig. I think it reset really established Penta. A good way to blow off the rivalry, really. Yeah, it ticks a lot of boxes.
And who would you say is a tough one? Because I'm going through it in my head already, and judging by some of the things I've said, I'm like, can I really say this for my answer? But I'm going to let you go first again. Who would you say is the MVP of tonight's show?
I think, although I was dissatisfied to an extent with the segment, I think it's still John Cena because that was the hook, that was the raison d'etre of why the entire episode existed. And although, look, everyone else obviously on that show, did work hard, we saw some decent things, I do think that the talking point for Raw for the next week is John Cena and what he'll be doing next. And obviously there'll be multiple kind of posts and tweets and other podcasts and all that kind of stuff spoken about that promo, dissecting this promo. I think we're all going to be kind of dissecting this promo like kind of bit by bit over the next week. Whereas some of the other stuff that happened, we're not really Penta. Penta and Ludwig had a fantastic contest, and that's always good to see. But if that match didn't exist, and Penta just said in the promo backstage, "Well, yeah, I'm going to fight for your title," like we'd still get there. It'd be fine. The
story's still the same. We're still going on next week. Going towards. But yeah, you're right. The talking point coming out of the show, for better or for worse, because again, I do think there were things about it I enjoyed. It was just different to what I expected, and we'll have to see where it goes. It's still John Cena, and ultimately that's what you want, right? Social media buzz and people tuning in next week to see what all the fuss is about and see what happens next. So speaking of next, we will be back hopefully within the next few days for the SmackDown Bologna show. We are going to try and cover these European shows as much as possible. Again, earlier on we did our watch along for the Brussels Monday Night Raw, and also we did a watch along for the Barcelona Friday Night SmackDown. On top of that, we've done instant reactions for both shows as well. So the instant reaction for SmackDown, Lucas was in attendance in Barcelona, so he gave us his thoughts on everything you see here: the Street Profits championship change with the great spot from Tiffany, the Axiom debut, the two mysterious vignettes we saw. But you've been watching the Raw instant reaction on a jam-packed Monday Night Raw. It wasn't the longest we've seen, but that's a good thing, because sometimes it can get quite tiring and long. And overall, I think it was an enjoyable show. And I hope you guys have enjoyed the show with us tonight. Thanks for allowing us to be your watch-along companion for the event itself. Before we get out of here, Lucas, any more points you want to raise?
No, that's it. Roll on for SmackDown and Raw next week, I guess, isn't it?
That's it. Let's keep going on to this European road to WrestleMania. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Check out more of our content. We'll be back for SmackDown. Casper says needs to get more stars on the shows such as Raw and SmackDown. Yeah, they've got a lot of TV time to fill. So it's strange when they start doubling up, isn't it? But maybe a light crew is easier to manage with flights. Who knows the logistics behind it? But look, we'll be back to discuss SmackDown in depth when Roman Reigns finally shows up on this European tour, which I think is something that a lot of people are looking forward to. And as Lucas said earlier on, we're bound to start getting these matches being made for WrestleMania as well. So let's see how we go with that one. But you've been watching the Raw coverage tonight, and I've been Scott. This one's been Lucas. We'll see you in the next one.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.